Broadcasting from the Allen B. Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation at Nova Southeastern University. Welcome to Sunshine Startups Live, featuring rockstar entrepreneurs, bright ideas, and experts on the startup ecosystem. And now your hosts of Sunshine Startups Live, Jim Ryan and John Wensveen.
Hi, and welcome to Sunshine Startups Live. I'm your host, entrepreneur, investor, and startup enthusiast, Jim Ryan. We're in season 2 of Sunshine Startups Live here from the Levan Center, and I'm, of course, joined by my colleague and friend, John Wensveen. John, great to be with you.
Great to be with you, my friend. Welcome to the world's first theme park for entrepreneurs, the Levan Center of Innovation, and we are coming to you live from our studio here at our 54,000 square foot facility. You know why today's kind of exciting for me? Because
why is that?
We have a guest that walked the runway with me as a fashion model recently, and man, he could strut his stuff. It was amazing. We'll maybe get into that in this conversation.
Well, I'm glad I'm wearing my fancy purple jacket, so I could join you. I could join you next time on that runway. But the purpose of the podcast is to talk about entrepreneurship, the burgeoning startup community here in South Florida. And we talk to entrepreneurs, successful executives, and of course startups, and in a large part as well, civic leaders, because there's a good component of why the economy, why this attraction to South Florida is happening is because of great civic leaders that are waving the hand about the good news that's happening in South Florida. And one of those civic leaders we're really excited to have today, the great mayor of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Dean Trantalis. Mayor, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast today.
Happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So I want to walk the clock back a bit and talk a little bit about your bio. I know you're originally from Connecticut.
Yeah.
Came down many, many years ago. So you were a pioneer when you came down to Florida. Kind of share with us a little bit about the Trantalis story about your journey back to Florida. Yeah.
So yes, I'm from the Northeast and went to school there. And however, I went to a law school here in Florida. I went to Stetson University Law School over in St. Pete. But I have to tell you, as a 20-something person, St. Pete wasn't really an attraction for me. In fact, I went 2 summers in a row just to get out of law school early, and took the bar exam and went back to Connecticut. But what happened in the meantime, while I practiced there for a little bit and realized that the Northeast, Connecticut in particular, was not a place for someone trying to strike it out on their own. Populations were shrinking, just wasn't ready for that kind of lifestyle. So my roommate from law school, a very good friend of mine, had transitioned over to the East Coast. Some company that we used to do clerking work for during school had hired him, and he said, "Come on over. You're not going to believe the East Coast. It's totally different. We'll just come down for a while, see what it's like. If you like it, fine. If you don't, you can go back." So I figured, okay, I'd already passed the bar, so I could start practicing. And we started a firm together. And I tell you, the first year I was down here, I thought I was on vacation every single day. I mean, the East Coast is so different than the West Coast, at least at that time. And I didn't look back. It was, I thought I'd give it a year or two, but it drew me in, and it's an exciting place to be. And it was a place where lots of fun things were happening, especially when you're in your 20s. You just love the excitement and the opportunity that the South Florida was having even back then.
So you went from law school into real estate law, if I'm not mistaken, is your area of specialization. Is that correct?
It is today, yeah.
It is today.
Well, real estate as well as estate planning and probate. Those are kind of my focuses right now. Some landlord-tenant litigation, but over the years, I tried just about everything. Mm-hmm. And I settled on what I do today because I feel comfortable with it, and it allows me to have the time to be able to go out and be in public service.
So that's where I'm going to go with this question. Is a lot of lawyers end up in political environments, and there's a reason for it. I'm curious, though, what took you into the world of the political life? I mean, that's a big decision to make, and it takes a special person to do that.
I think I was born that way. I've always been very interested in politics and what goes on in our country. Even in the 1960s, I was I was a Ralph Nader advocate. I helped other politicians run for office. My brother actually ran for office, didn't win, but helped in his campaign. And majored in political science at Boston University, so a very liberal institution that during the Vietnam War kind of honed my sense of what America was about and how to get involved. And so it continued with that. I mean, even in schools, I ran for student government, and so I guess maybe it's in my blood. And then when I came to Florida, there were issues here that were important to me, and that's what kept me going in the political process.
So Mayor, I want to talk about that because you originally came in as a commissioner and then became mayor in 2018, and you've been a real transformative agent for moving this 200,000 population base growth where it is today, where you're now attracting businesses to come to the community. You've helping migrate while yes, this is a tourist economy, we're the home of yachts and the marine industry, which is, as you described, sort of like the boat show being the Super Bowl here in South Florida. But talk about sort of this transformation. When you started as mayor, 2018, you had a vision for this transformation to where it is today. Can you talk about that, Sure. What you saw was some of the challenges and the legacy that was there in Fort Lauderdale to where you're moving the city today?
So when I first began my entrance into politics here in Fort Lauderdale, it was back in 2003 when I was first elected commissioner, and I think I did it back then because I just wanted to be more involved. I felt, I'm an openly gay mayor, and it was back then no one from my community really had ever been successful in being able to be on representative government in Fort Lauderdale. So I became the first openly gay city commissioner. And it was a milestone not just for me, but also for my community to be able to finally have a seat at the table, literally. And so I kind of entered politics with that in mind, not necessarily having a particular vision back in 2003, but just wanted to participate in the decision-making process. I stepped down after my first term for personal reasons. I met somebody, and I thought, I'm not really able to devote myself to a relationship and still be in government. It's really a full-time job. So, but I returned to the commission in 2013, and then in 2018, I decided to run for mayor. The reason is because, first of all, it was an open seat. Jack Seiler had termed out. So it was an open seat, and to me, there was opportunity. I spent all those years now as a commissioner, and I saw opportunity that was being ignored or was being wasted, and for whatever reason, whether it be politics, whether it be lack of vision, whether it be just the inability to bring the city forward. So, there were other candidates that were running at that time, and no one was really creating any sparks in the community. I went to the meetings throughout the city, and no one was really finding themselves connecting to these candidates. So I said, you know what, I'm going to run. And so at the last minute, I put my name in there, and I was very flattered that I won with over 65% of the vote. And it made me realize that people wanted to be heard. There was an idea that that we need to take the city forward in a way that before we were holding ourselves back. So what did we do in the meantime? What's happened here? First of all, we've created a sense of embracing diversity, that if you want to come to Fort Lauderdale, there's a place for you. No matter where you come from, what you believe, who you love, anything, whatever background you have, Fort Lauderdale is a welcoming place. And that sets the tone for a lot of things. You're talking about entrepreneurship. Well, entrepreneurship means you strike it out on your own. You're going to, start a business, and you're going to see how you can succeed. So, and nothing should hold you back. No discrimination shouldn't hold you back. Laws shouldn't be discriminatory in nature. Everyone should have the same playing field, right? When they try to become successful in their own right. And I think that was the tone I tried to set when I first became mayor. But what happened was a lot of things happened. So after the first year, we had tremendous amount of setbacks with our infrastructure problems, big sewage leaks, and then COVID hit us. It was one thing after another. I think I'm going to write the book and call it The Crisis Mayor. It was one thing after another. Then last year we had that huge flood that was just biblical in proportions. So I think the challenges that we had in trying to manage those situations, I credit our city managers who served during that time, that really knew how to handle it, and a commission that worked together with city management to try to overcome those very difficult times for the city. But during COVID, we saw a lot of people who looked at Florida as a place where they felt that they could come and really escape all the confines that were being put upon them in cities like New York and Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco. People came here during the boat show that you mentioned and said, "Wow, I can breathe here," and you could, the philosophy here was, we want you to protect yourself from contracting COVID. As it was, 80,000 people died during that era. It was a very tragic moment. But people started to come here and realize that they can get away from high taxing states. They can get away from the restrictions that were being imposed on them by their local governments. And there was an opportunity here to truly invest in themselves and in their vision in a state that embraced who they were and how they can become successful. And I think that combination, I would go to some of the events at the boat show that year, and people were buying condominiums. They said, "Oh my God, I can't believe we never discovered Fort Lauderdale as a place to live." So, and now that the way of doing business has changed, where people work remotely and they don't have to be in the centers of big cities, we see an awful lot of change in that pattern that we have been able to invite that kind of business approach in a place like Florida, where instead of looking out your window and you're looking at snow piling up on your car, you're looking out the window and you're seeing seagulls and the beaches, and it's nice, right? So, and we offer that. So what we have been able to do from a city point of view is to just make sure that the streets are clean, they're safe, our schools are adequate to make sure that you have a great education for your kids. And those kinds of things from a government point of view are the things that we focus on, so that let business be business. Let business opportunity continue to move forward. And people, I think, have caught on to that. So you see our population increasing significantly. A lot of young people have come here. And they can work from their apartments. They can work from their homes. And they go out at night, and it's really a fun place to be, I have to say. I had lunch this week with the artist Romero Brito, who's now going to open a gallery on Las Olas Boulevard. And I said, "Why are you opening a gallery on Las Olas?" He says, "Because this is the place to be."
Yeah, that's great.
So the word is out, and we're happy to spread that word as well.
So it's kind of interesting. Broward County specifically has sort of been known as the tween, the in between, the Palm Beach and the Miami County. And nobody realized the meat of the burgers were actually right here, Greater Fort Lauderdale. And I know that there's been, and congratulations first of all on all the successes, because you were throwing a lot of curveballs in a very short period of time. So the crisis mayor is probably very fitting. And here we are in a new world where South Florida is literally on fire in a very good way in terms of the volume of opportunities that continue to emerge, especially around things like innovation, technology, entrepreneurship. And there's been a perception that maybe Fort Lauderdale, South Florida, has been sunshine, cruise ships, and beaches, which we hope forevermore we have all of that infrastructure, of course. But as you recognize, there's a lot of changes, and people are finding out that we're on the map. Where do you see the future going in terms of the industry verticals or the potential involvement of new economies in our growth, but also knowing that we've got some challenges around things like housing, transportation, et cetera, and that there's a lot of other factors that go into all this. But where do you see the future going? Where are we going to make our mark?
So what you're saying is very true in terms of what is Fort Lauderdale? What is Broward County? For years, we've relied on the marine industry and the hospitality business to really be the mainstay. We're a tourist destination. Yes, we are the yachting capital of the world, and Venice of America, and water and waterways are our lifeblood. So we have to make sure we support that, sustain that, and try to promote it as much as we can. Real estate, of course, is also a big industry in our areas. But what COVID taught us is that we need to diversify, because the hospitality business took a big hit. It depressed our economy, and we cannot allow that to happen again. So we have been working with a lot of people who have been knocking on our doors and been saying, we would like to locate in your area. Just 2 weeks ago, we had a groundbreaking for a new motion picture studio that wants to move to Fort Lauderdale. So they are going to start building an enterprise here that's unlike any other type of motion picture enterprise that you've ever seen, because a lot of the legacy studios in Los Angeles, like Paramount and Disney and so forth, they're kind of dinosaurs in the way they do business, the way they produce entertainment. This is going to be a completely tech-driven enterprise. They're going to build sound stages, they're going to build backlots and things like that, but it's going to be completely tech-driven. We're hoping that industry, that kind of attitudes, spills over into the rest of the community, and there will be ancillary jobs and ancillary businesses that will be able to grow as a result of this investment that's taking place in our city. They claim that over 1,000 tech jobs will be created by this new industry that's coming to our city. So it's that kind of reaching out. They reached out to us. We, as government, need to partner with investors, because that's the only way investment will succeed. We cannot be the type of government that says no when you knock on the door. We have to hold each other's hand and make sure these things happen. We have to be a can-do kind of government and not a no-do, right? So we've also been blessed with folks that I call them angel investors, where people who have seen Fort Lauderdale as a great place for families and for entrepreneurship have invested in recreational facilities. For example, Inter Miami built the huge soccer stadium, where we now have international stars like Leo Messi and others who live in our city and who participate in competition sports right here in our backyard. We have the Panther organization, another champion organization. They built 2 ice skating rinks in our downtown. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, you're wasting good land. We should just have that as open space. No one's going to be interested in ice skating." Well, you can't even get in there now because it's packed every weekend and most weekdays, because people love recreational activities. It's a place where bonding with family members can come together, your friends from school. It's a place to hang, right? And now we're in the middle of building one of the largest pickleball centers in the country. There'll be a stadium, all on the dime of other people. Not one. All the city has done is donate the land, and as a result, we have a place where people can feel connected to their city, like the city is doing something for them. In addition to the soccer fields, in addition to the baseball fields that we traditionally had, and of course we have our beautiful beach, right? Unlike any other beach in Florida, and so we're very blessed in that regard. And one activity feeds on the other, and people start to see, wow, this is a good life. And it is a good life, We've been very blessed, and I'm very honored and proud to be the mayor that is leading this effort.
I like you sharing, the can-do mayor with the thumbs up, and Mayor Suarez in Miami got a lot of accolades for tweeting, hey, California, Silicon Valley, come to Miami, I'll help you out here, and so forth. And I know that John mentioned about we're the hamburger here in the meat.
We're the meat of the sandwich.
That's right. And the meat of the sandwich. And but you've done a lot in the way of sort of waving the banner as well here for Fort Lauderdale. Lauderdale, a lot of innovation, a lot of tech going in there. The parking meters, solar powered. These micro buses that are shuttling people now throughout parts of the city. Circuit. Yeah. I know. Is that still in a pilot today, or has that been officially launched?
Well, it started out as a pilot, but we have expanded the geographical area, so it's become part of our city now. But we'll continue to expand it as it becomes more and more successful. Plus the water taxi. The water taxi, it has 1.3 million passengers every single year, which is phenomenal, and half of them are locals. People take it to go from point A to point B, which is amazing, right? We've become truly the Venice of America, but to your point about what Francis Suarez has done in Miami, my hat's off to him for his being able to attract some of these very large tech industries. But we too have drawn them, and we don't celebrate them in the same way. But it's become a very quiet infusion of tech industries, tech talent, tech opportunities that continue to find their way to Fort Lauderdale. We have to be very cautious though about one thing, and it's an issue that you brought up earlier. The tech industry is very high paying, right? So that puts a lot of pressure on housing costs. People are willing to pay more money for an apartment or a condo. So we have to be careful about diversifying our economy. So we still need the types of jobs that are perhaps lower paying, but still important to the vitality of a community. So, for example, this movie studio, we're going to need carpenters and electricians and all kinds of tradespeople that make up the whole ecosystem of what it means to make that type of business successful. And we want to see that throughout the county so that everyone can afford to be able to live and work and enjoy what we have here.
So you also just brought up a really interesting point too. So Miami, yes, a lot of highlights and often taking credit for successes outside of Miami and the greater Miami statistical area in terms of definition. I get it.
Right.
But one of the things that we've done here in the greater Fort Lauderdale area is we've supported a growing ecosystem for the diversity, for the new industries and the historical industries that we've been able to support. Miami's put themselves on a map and said we're planting X flag, whatever is crypto or whatever the trend is at the time. But one of the important lessons is that it's important to be able to deliver on the flag that you're also planting. And there's been some cases where Miami did plant the flag and was not able to deliver. And I don't want to say smoke and mirrors in some cases, but in some cases that's definitely accurate. And this brings me back down to us being in between again, that we're doing so many great things that we need to elevate to the world to tell, hey, you can come to Fort Lauderdale, here's what's going on here and why it's so important, and break some of the perceptions that exist. So with that said, what kind of strategies do you think that we can implement so that the rest of the world does have a better understanding of what we have to offer for live, work, and play? Because it is phenomenal. It is a hidden gem.
Well, we have been working with other governments at the county level, and the state not so much. In fact, they're pulling back on their investment in promoting tourism and so forth. But we've been working with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, Visit Lauderdale, been tremendous partners in elevating the brand of Fort Lauderdale. And the county also trying to bring together our resources to elevate our brand. And it's a slow process. It will take some time. I travel around the country. I travel around the world, with the Fort Lauderdale flag, and we're getting a response. We are definitely a destination. Yes, you mentioned about the cruise industry and so forth. Yes, we do get a lot of visitors who really come here just to hop on a cruise ship. But you'd be surprised how many more and more people are staying and realizing what we have here. Even the International Boat Show, when the Bahia Mar project is finally built out, we're going to have a landside experience unlike anything has ever existed before, so that all those people that come here from all over the world will say, wow, this is an amazing experience. The brands of our hotels, for example, are unlike any other place, and we're all right on the beach. So, I was mentioning to a friend yesterday, he was talking about how he was staying at one of our hotels. He said it's like, he's on vacation even though he lives here. So we all should take a staycation and really appreciate what we have. This weekend would be a great time when the air show's here. Go to one of the hotels, one of the rooftop bars or pools, and really enjoy what we have here, because it's magical. It's really quite different than you would probably expect, and and you won't appreciate it until you actually go out and do it. But there are challenges. You had mentioned transportation also. So the city has been working with the county and trying to encourage a commuter rail system. This will be going from Miami to West Palm Beach. And it's interesting, I was talking with an executive yesterday with Brightline, and I said, why are you raising the prices on your trains, right? When I say raising the prices, they're eliminating their monthly passes. And he said, because we're packed. He said, we can't take any more passengers. I said, well, you should add more cars is what you should do, but so we'll see how that business model works out. But I said, well, how can you, are people going to be willing to pay more money to take this service? And so thus the question is commuter rail going to be successful, or is it going to be too expensive for people to take? I would hope that we'd be able to come up with a solution to that question. But nonetheless, we are working with all the levels of government to try to bring commuter rail to our city. Part of that requires us to be smart about how we build the infrastructure for a commuter rail. We have a new river that runs through the middle of our city, and we also have a very robust marine industry that's located up the river. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to compromise that marine industry in any way. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So the county had talked about building a bridge through the middle of the city to bring the crossing over the new river, in such a way that it wouldn't impede the flow of traffic. We're pushing a tunnel. I think we're going to get there because no one wants to see a 2-mile bridge run through the middle of downtown Fort Lauderdale. I mean, the whole point of commuter rail is to encourage economic development. We already have economic development. This would crush it. And so we're hoping to move forward and make sure that we do the right things, because this is going to be generational, right? So let's make sure we build the tunnel. We could probably build it for the same price as a bridge, and it will have much better lasting impact, not only in terms of opening green spaces, but also connecting communities. The railroad tracks throughout South Florida have been a dividing line. Let's face it. Mm-hmm. It's been a dividing line between those who live on this side of the tracks and those who live on the other side of the tracks. And in concert with the current the Biden administration in trying to fund opportunities that connect communities, this would be a way for us to tap into those monies to be able to participate in getting funding for this project and still fulfill the purpose of taking away those walls between communities in our city. So these are great goals for us, and these are the challenges over the next term.
I love the creativeness, the innovation. You were mentioning the tunnel, the Elon Musk, the Boring Company, the potential opportunity to do something.
I haven't even got to that yet.
I want to hear about that, but okay. I know that got held up in the commission, but the idea of like, hey, we've got a problem. Let's look at, let's have some ingenuity here and put something together, put some proposals out there, right, to help some of the city's challenges. I want to ask you about, you talked about being in crises and going through these crises. These things seem to happen at light speed today, right? So you mentioned COVID happening, the Great Flood, almost, biblical, as you also mentioned. When you draw on your experiences because you formed a startup many years ago as an entrepreneur, starting your legal practice. Right. Crisis management is a key component to entrepreneurship. It's a key component to being a civic leader. Where do you draw on handling these crises, and how do you handle those as you go through these?
Well, each crisis requires different partners. So let's talk about the flood, for example. It was definitely a learning experience, and why is that? Because I realized that in order to get federal funding, disaster relief funding, there are all these steps we have to go through. First, we have to get the county to declare a disaster area. Then we have to get the state to do the same thing, and then you have to prove why it is. You have to sort of create a catalog of the damage and destruction, which we did. So, and we were very, very lucky that the governor's office, through Jimmy Petronas, the CFO, came down here and witnessed it himself, and then that required a letter to be generated from the governor to then send to the White House to then sign off on getting FEMA relief. Normally they were told it would take weeks before we'd get FEMA relief. So the city manager and I said, look, let's hop on a plane. I have some friends there. We'll talk to them. We'll see if we can get through. So Mitch Landrieu, who was head of infrastructure from the White House, we met with him. We met with some transportation officials. And that night we got the okay from FEMA. The president signed off on it, which we were very, very proud that we were able to, move forward and be very proactive in helping families who were in very dire straits getting federal funding to get them back on their feet. So that was a learning opportunity for us to know the various steps that have to be taken. Unfortunately, those steps are still in place, but COVID was different. COVID was we were being sort of bandied about between the federal government and the state government and all these philosophical differences they were having, and here we are in the city saying, what do we do? How are we going to deal with that? But we're very lucky. We connected with the state. We were able to get vaccine facilities, testing facilities here in Broward without having to wait very long. I credit our now Congressman Jared Moskowitz, who was working with DeSantis administration at that time, for pushing forward and getting all those facilities quickly and directly to our community. So we're very, very lucky. Again, it's about relationships. It's about connecting between governments, and it's ultimately trying to do the good for the people.
So I like the optimism. I'm as optimistic as you about the future, and think that great things are happening. And I think that when the next crisis happens, it's not if it is going to happen, it's when it's going to happen, that we are
Let's look
prepared.
into your Rubik's Cube.
I think that's where I'm going to go with this now. So normally I like to ask a unique question that's different every time that we have somebody, but the last two people that we've had on Sunshine Startups Live, I stumped both of them. One really stumped and never gave me the answer. Now, if you could pick an animal, any animal in the world, real or fictitious, and you could sit down and have a conversation with that animal, what kind of animal would it be, and what would that communication look like?
Good question. I'd probably want to have a communication with a chimpanzee, because a chimpanzee has a level of awareness and I think cognitive ability that I'd be able to relate to more than a giraffe or a hamster. So I think we could talk man to man.
Well, I like your answer. You know why? Nobody's ever asked me that same question, but mine is an orangutan, and I've been fascinated with orangutan since I was this high. And it was a TV show that got me into orangutans. Remember BJ and the Bear many, many, many years ago?
It wasn't Tarzan.
It wasn't Tarzan. But I did learn something many years ago about the first Tarzan movie. I think it was filmed in Florida, up towards the Space Coast region. And a lot of the monkeys that exist today, because they escaped from the cages during the filming of the production, and I was at late 20s, early 30s, somewhere in there, and that's where the monkeys came from.
So Broward County was also a place where they staged some of the jungle scenes. And I'm told some of those monkeys made their way to Bonnet House.
Oh, no kidding.
But again, that's just folklore. I don't know if that's true.
Hemingway's house has the cats, and Bonnet House has the chimpanzee store.
Cats. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But Florida has always been kind of the also ran state, an afterthought state, partly because of its very harsh climate. Originally when Florida was settled, it was northern Florida. It was all along, where Tallahassee is and so forth. When the British first established it as a colony, it wasn't here because it was swampland, mosquitoes. It was very difficult. And so, it wasn't really till the 20th century that we really became discovered. Fort Lauderdale in particular, while there is some evidence of, investment during the 1920s and 30s, it wasn't until the 1960s and post-war America that it really took off. And you can see the dominance of that architecture that exists in our city. A lot of the infrastructure institutions like the tunnel that we have going under the New River, built in the 60s. Our city hall was built in the 60s. A plethora of churches were built all during the 60s. So there was sort of like this renaissance that came through Fort Lauderdale during the 60s. And then it kind of meandered, taking second seat to Miami and Palm Beach. But now I feel that Fort Lauderdale is finally coming into its own again. We are branding ourselves in a very strong way, and for good reason. It's not like it's just smoke and mirrors or just decoration. There's meat to what we have here, and I think that anyone looking to invest in a business who is entrepreneurial would find very fertile ground in the community that we have created.
Well said. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about your political future. I know that, are you on your second term now?
So I'm finishing my second term. I'm up for re-election in November, and I hope to be re-elected. I'm really excited about that. But it will unfortunately be my last term as mayor because I'll be term limited. So, but it'll give me 4 more years to really wrap up a lot of the projects that we have started. And who knows what will come up in the meantime.
Well, I know you serve on numerous boards. I know you and I share a board with Broward Workforce Development. Thank you for your work there and commitment to job creation here in the county and a lot of the work that you do. Mayor Dean Trantalis of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It's been really great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Remember to subscribe, like, and share the Sunshine Startups Live podcast and follow us on social media. If you're interested in sponsoring or appearing on the show, please email us at booking@sunshinestartups.live.